Okay, so regarding bar and bat mitzvah, like we said, it will be set by the Hebrew calendar, which means that one can check when the Hebrew date was when you were born, and then your bar or bat mitzvah will be following that date. If it's necessary, sometimes you get these questions, and especially during COVID, we got these questions a lot. What happens if you can't have it? Is it a necessity to have it on that specific date? The answer is no. Since the bar and bat mitzvah are not a mitzvah, it's just symbolizing um, the fact that you have become obligated to mitzvot. So if necessary, you can postpone it. My brother, for example, one of my siblings, he prepared his whole bar mitzvah parasha for months and months. He was preparing, and what happened? Suddenly, he got hepatitis and had to postpone his bar mitzvah and had to learn a whole new parasha, a whole new part of the Torah until, and then we had it, I think it was like half a year later. So it's not necessary if for different reasons you have to postpone it, it's possible, but that doesn't change what actually the bar and bat mitzvah mean, as I was saying before. Bar and bat mitzvah mean that one is obligated to mitzvot and is considered an adult. This was connected during the time of the Mishnah. It was connected also to puberty, and to the fact that one is becoming sexually mature as well, and that obligation was connected to that as well. So there is a connection, right? Which is why we also see that the boy is the bar mitzvah is set later than the bat mitzvah, because of that difference as well. But we don't go; it's not personal in which we check the that with each girl and boy, but basically we set the date of 13 and 12 and 12, which is also the proper time in which someone is hopefully responsible enough to take upon the mitzvot, and they are required to do so from that time onwards. So what the content of the bar and bat mitzvah is really dependent on the person, and it's something to talk with your local rabbi about well in advance to get that prepared. It's not necessary. Nothing is actually necessary, but we do have a special bracha. It's the first time that the boy will go up to the Torah, not only read, but also make the bracha over the Torah, because he's now obligated to the Torah. And in the latest, I would say in the last generation or two, there's been a huge development regarding the bat mitzvah, and I think very special not only celebrations that the girls have become taken, but also taking upon themselves a special mitzvah, or connecting or learning in ways that were not, unfortunately, the girls were not so involved before, and there's much more advancement in girl education and learning, and also what the bat mitzvah is, and what can actually be a part of that celebration. For example, there like girls that I prepared for the bat mitzvah. First of all, it's always important, I think, that there's also a woman involved, because it's connection to her womanhood, and but also it's an opportunity to say, well, being a mitzvah is being connected to the world and making the world a better place. Is there a special mitzvah that you want to be connected to that can make that you would that can be a part of? So I think there's been a very positive development in that, especially regarding girls, but also in terms of boys not only having a formal celebration in which many times the boy or the girl is very, very nervous standing in front of the community, but also at a personal level. What does the mitzvot mean? What does the Torah mean for me? Could this day? How could I take upon myself a project? For society, or a project of charity, or something personal. I think these are things which are very important as and have been developed lately. I'm going to pass over. We went shortly just through bar and bat mitzvah, sort of in terms of the Hebrew date, but Rav Yoav, we also spoke about that the Hebrew date being very important in terms of the ketubah and the date in which someone gets married. And I'm going to let you continue from here. Thank you for joining us, Rav Yoav.
Thank you. Just let me know how long, when should I finish?
You have, you're down to 40 minutes or so. I'm sorry.
40 minutes. Okay, no, sorry that we'll do this way. Okay, I want to speak a little about marriage and chuppah in the halacha. There are many details to go through, and so the idea here is not to be able to explain all the details, but maybe to speak a little about the idea to begin with, and then just to go through the ceremony itself to understand what the different parts of the ceremony are of a chuppah. If you have any questions, ask when you want. If not, I'll just go on speaking about this. I want to start with a teaching from Rav Soloveitchik. He has a teaching speaking about the idea of getting married. What is the idea? What is the meaning of getting married? One thing is, we can speak, of course, about the being a part of a people and being giving fruit, giving the next generation and so on. That happens through a frame. But in the idea of a marriage, mainly a man and a woman that comes together and build a unit together, he speaks mainly about two reasons for why people need that, why people do that. And he speaks about it according, he teaches us based on the teachings of the reading of the creation of mankind, where we also have a man and a woman first saying in the first chapter. I'll share the text fast here, but we won't go deep into the text. Let's make humankind and so on, creating them male and female. So here we have male and female, and he creates mankind and saying be fertile and increase, fill the earth and master it and rule over the fish and the birds and so on, as we can see here. That is the creation of mankind in the 6th day of the creation. Later we have another description of creation of mankind in the second. Now we're in the 2nd chapter. Such is the story of the heaven and the earth when they were created, when God Hashem made earth and heaven. And then first we have the creation of everything, and then God Hashem formed the human from the soil's humus, blowing into his nostrils and breath of life, the breath of life. So in the 2nd chapter we have the description of another creation of humankind again, and there are many midrashim and others who speak about the reason why we have two descriptions of creation of the world and two different descriptions of creation of mankind. And even when it comes to man and male and female, in the 1st chapter, mankind was created man and female at once. And in the 2nd chapter, we have the known story when he says it's not good for man to be alone, and then he makes takes a part of the man and makes it to the woman, and then we have man and woman. And from then, it says also, I didn't read it, a person will leave his parents, his father and mother and stick to his wife. And that's a description of a wedding, of growing up, becoming adult, and then building a new home with the woman. And Rav Soloveitchik explained these two descriptions of mankind and tries to take out of that the meaning towards the need to get married, to have a partner. So he says there are two parts in us as human beings. One is a part of the nature. In the first chapter, mankind, the human was created together with animals, as a part of the animals. Yes, as a part that has to rule over the animals, a part that is above the animals, but still a part of the nature. And in the second chapter, mankind is created totally separately separately from the nature, from the animals, and so on. And he says that we have in ourselves the natural part that is more similar to animals, and we have a human part that is above and separated from nature and from animals. And based on that, we have different needs. We're eating as animals. We are many things. People speak about species as if we are species, a part of the animals. And in a way, it's correct. We are, and in that, in not exactly every animals have their way of getting partners and getting children, but also human beings have the same needs. Needs to have fruits, to have children, needs to have protection. Man and wife give protection to each other. In old days, it was even more like a kind of agreement, where the man was going out to get bread to the home, and the woman was taking care of the home itself. Today it's different, but the idea of building a home together that could solve all our needs of protection, of food, of being of giving fruits. All of that is in a way similar to what we have out in nature, but also a human need. And that's a reason to get married. We're married, like a kind of agreement that where a man and a woman could fill each other to getting it, so things will get better for both of them. So that for all the needs we spoke about. And then Rav Soloveitchik adds and said, but there's also another kind of side of mankind, and that's the human. That needs a spiritual world, needs a world of someone to speak to, someone to share their thoughts with. That's not a need. You could cover all the needs we spoke about without speaking too much, without having a soul connection with another person. But since humankind is not only a part of nature and a creature similar to others, we also have another need, and that's above, and that's a need for having a partner for life, for our human spiritual, I will in many ways also intellectual needs, where we connect to someone else and having a bond to them. And then that is actually also totally separated from the reason for one person to have a partner, because they want to have children together, because it's easier to have a home together, because they want to enjoy what man and a woman can enjoy together of sexual life and other things like that. That's a need world. But there is also another, and that is the soul connection between man and woman. And I think in the way we see it in the tradition, that's an idea from Rav Soloveitchik. This idea is very central also in the way we build a chuppah with the way we want our Jewish homes to be, that the homes, of course, have all the things we spoke about in the first part. It's a part. You can't have a home that, okay, we only share spiritual things together. No, nothing else. The idea is that you're physical connected, physical with all the physical needs, with a physical home, with that gives protection, with a connection that gives a good life inside the home, all the physical needs you have inside the physical home, giving fruits to the next generation. But doing that without the spiritual connection is a way of is losing one of maybe the most important part. And because of that, even I will say partners, man and wife, that for one another reason live more in a poor life. They don't get so much food, or don't get children as they maybe want. Still have the connection between two human beings that are connected together, not only in the physical way, but also in a spiritual way. And that's very important. One of the best examples to explain that will be the whole halacha around nida, around what we call following the pureness of family. That's the pureness of family, where there are periods in life of man and wife where they don't connect physically at all. They're not allowed to connect. They even separate the beds. So they're in the same room, but separate beds, and they're not allowed to touch your wife or your man in these almost 2 weeks. Not allowed to touch. You're more allowed to touch other people than your own partner. And one of the explanations, if we go to the physical world, is of course it's good to want to be together again, and that builds a good balance in the physical world. But even more important is that it builds a good balance in the spiritual world, where you have a time when you have to connect without a physical connection. And then the only connection is the soul connection, it's speaking together, is connecting without the physical things. And that makes the physical connection even more, I will say, full, even more. And that's a part of the way of building a home and how important that is. When I want to continue now, I'll speak more practical about, okay, but how does that happen? Sorry. I'll speak a little more about how that happens. How do we do a chuppah? Okay. So if you have any idea, how do Jews get married? What is needed for Jews to get married? If anyone has a clue? Yes, it's just to unmute and say what you want.
What do you mean when you say what we need? We need the chuppah because it's the home that the couple is going to build together.
So the chuppah, you say, is a kind of symbol for the home.
The house.
Going into the home together, yes. So the traditional way of celebrating celebrating the building of a new Jewish home is the chuppah, the physical chuppah that we put. In many Western European traditions, we do it often in synagogue. Others have a tradition not to do it in a home, but always do it outside, under the skies. And you build a home under the skies. Different reason for that, but the physical chuppah that you know, that is a symbol for the home.
You have some answers in the chat room, Rav Joav.
Yeah, in the chat now. So there is the ring. Okay, why do we need a ring? I don't have a ring. Oops.
It's only for the woman, right? It's technically from the Torah in purchasing the bride.
Yeah, so we use I'll use the Hebrew term liknot kinyan, to buy in a way, or purchase, and there is a way to make man and wife connected formally, okay, and that is by liknot, by purchase, like a way of making a deal where this woman is now connected to the man. One of the reasons why you do that way is that in old days it was allowed to have more than one wife. That is not allowed in Judaism in many years, and very unnormal also before it became forbidden, besides some few Jewish diaspora where that was still normal. But in yes, Moshe David.
Just the wording that to purchase, it sounds a bit as if
I'll
you're
come
purchasing.
to it. I'll come to it. I won't
Right.
leave it like that. Don't worry.
It just, for me, it just sounds like a bit. Are we purchasing it like an object? Is it like going to the store? I don't know what.
Yeah. So in many ways it is, because the Talmudic word is liknot, is person, like buying, like you buy something. But actually, when you see how it happens, you could. It may be better that my brother that should have. He once went through the whole idea of the word of kinyan in the Talmud, and from buying he learned that buying also other places is not a kind of owning that we think this is mine. It's more a description of a connection. One of the examples for that is, if I had to buy my wife in the way we understand, if kinyan would be buying, I shouldn't buy her from herself. I should buy her from her father, or if we think about ownership. But you don't do that. It's a kind of, so the word kinyan is, by that we could understand it as a kind of a way to bind things together. So when this is my phone, okay, or this is my house, I could think as ownership, because that's the way we see it. But because we use in Judaism the same way of kinyan, it also gives understanding that when this is my home, it has a connection to me. But ownership, everything is owned by Hashem in the end, okay? People often, if you go to a yeshiva, you see books, and all the books it says, La Hashem ha'aretz umlo'ah, Hashem owns the heaven and the earth. This is in my property now, or this is connected to me now. So people know who owns the book. By understanding that ownership, a kind of a powerful ownership, is maybe not existing, and a wrong way of understanding ownership generally. Even more important to say that when we come to a marriage, to the what we call kiddushin, making holy, it's not about someone buying someone else, even if the word was that, but because it doesn't work in the way we do it, but we do a kind of act showing a connection, a binding together. This person is binded to this person. And one of the most important,
I would just add, if I may, the word responsibility as well, as we see in the Ketuvah very strongly.
I didn't come to the Ketuvah yet. Now I only speak about
the kinyan also means if I buy, even if I'm purchasing, like the Talmudic example, I'm purchasing an ox. I now have the responsibility. If that ox goes and damages someone else, there's a sense of the ownership in the Talmud is very much connected to what responsibility I have over what is mine in that sense. Very much more so than the idea. I agree very much than this idea today. I own it. It's a sense of power or something like that.
I own it. I can do with it what I want.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, like in Norwegian culture, if I own a forest, okay, means that this forest is connected to me. but I have responsibilities. It's not now I can do what I want with it. So in that way, it's not exactly the same, no way, but ownership or connection to something means responsibility for something in many ways. And when it comes to man and wife, maybe even more. And one of the most important things in getting married is not only that I do kind of binding with my soulmate, with my wife, okay? If I do it only me and her together, only we know it, what is the problem? What would be the problem? Okay. The problem is that it's only between us, and marriage is something that should be publicly. There is a reason why we also in the civil world get married in the by the authorities. Yes, Sarah.
So if is that also connected to how Jewish divorce works? Like, if you have bought your wife, you also have to sell her, or I mean, is those two things connected?
No, so that's when even we don't sell, we disconnect. Okay, it's a good example, because if it was buying in the way we understand, because that's a word we're connected to it because it says it in the Talmud. That's a word we use, kinyan, liknot, aisha niknet. Okay, but if that was the idea, then you would have sold the woman to someone else, or the man if the woman buys the man. But okay, and that's not possible. The only thing you could do, if I want to live with my wife until the end of our days, but if I wanted, and we would agree, if I bought her, then I could sell her on to someone else, and that's not possible. The only thing I could do is disconnect, because I connected, I have the responsibility towards her, and she has a responsibility towards me. And the day we disconnect, we don't have that responsibility towards each other in the same way anymore. So it's a connection, a disconnection. And the word person to buy or liknot means a connection, and not a material ownership or being that's important that way. But it's very important to say that the whole idea of getting married is to do it publicly, because when I'm single, when my wife is single, then she could connect with any other single person she wants. And the idea that we got married is now we're taken. Okay, and today we do it. People do it in Facebook. They say now we are okay. Now I'm in a relationship or things like that. So everyone will know that now I'm taken. But it's a little more obligated when you do it in a marriage and not in a Facebook message. So the idea of doing it publicly, if you do it between yourself, we want to get married, that's okay. As long as you haven't done it publicly, it's not formal. It has to be public. People have to know that now I'm taken. Taken in a good way, not a bad way. Okay. And because of that, the way it happens, the halacha way, how it happens, is that there has to be an action of kinyan, of a connection. And this action of connection has to be done publicly, meaning have to have witnesses. So if we do the same action and no one sees, nothing, it's as if we didn't do anything. At once that we have done this action publicly, then it's done. And formally, you don't need any rabbi for that. You don't need any synagogue to that. You don't need any chuppah for that. You only need to, the way we do it is to give something that has a value. We use the ring. There are many reasons for that. I won't go into it right now. You give the ring, okay? And you declare, like how it happens normally is that a man like asks for the hand or for the of the woman. So the man takes the ring. That's what we see often in the chuppah. We don't see so good because it's a little thing, but it's very important that the witnesses see that. Take the ring and declares, I want to give you this, and by that you will be holy to me. That's the words we use. According to the law of Moses and Israel, saying this, when I give it to you and you take it, then we're married. Okay. Another thing about buying, if you buy something, the object that you buy doesn't have any say. Here, when you connect, if the woman doesn't want, there's no way, in any way in the world, to marry someone against her will. Doesn't work. The only way it happens is that the man declares that he wants, he gives this object, this ring in front of the public, in front of the witnesses, and that the woman accepts it. So it's not a very active doing from the woman, but it has to be a showing of a will, taking it into herself, the ring, and by that showing the holiness that man and wife have to each other now publicly, and now they're connected. This is what I said now is shortly, that is the action of getting married. So if I will take a book and I will declare, I want to liknot, or to be holy, so someone to be holy to me by this book, and I say that words in front of witnesses, and a woman takes it, if she's single, of course, then we become a man and wife, and then we have to have a get and divorce according to Jewish law. This is one of the reasons why we do it by rabbis. Rabbis don't do it, but rabbis just ensure that it's done in the correct way, so that there won't be a question: are they married or are they not married? So that even if you could get married without any rabbi, it's the normal thing is a rabbi is what we call mesader chuppah v'kiddushin, is making the order of the chuppah itself. I'll go very soon to the order of the chuppah. But the idea of getting married, the main point is the declaration of the will, the accept by the woman and the witnesses, and the giving, of course. As long as we have these things, that is the Jewish way of getting married. Now, it's important to say that in old days, the way that happened, what we said now is a kind of getting engaged, saying we want to get married, we accept, we do a deal, and one day we'll have the wedding party and we will build a new home. So in old days, when a man and a wife agreed about getting married, they did this, what I said now, and then they are formally man and wife, but they're not allowed to live together before they do what we call the nisuin, that comes from carrying the wife into the home. Okay, laset. Okay, the nisuin. So we have many words. We have kiddushin or irusin. We sometimes say that in Hebrew. The kiddushin is the holiness, is in making the couple man and wife, and then a totally different ceremony is the celebration of the marriage. And after that, they go into their home together and they begin their life together. Very often, it took a year between these two. So the man went back to his parents, the woman went back to her parents. Now they are man and wife, but now they have to make all the physical, maybe building a house was important, and just all the other arrangements to the big party. And then they got married later. The problem with what I said now, is that it means that they're formally man and wife, and they don't live as man and wife in a longer period. And if for one another reason they want to break the deal, then they have to do the get. That's not very easy. And then they are not single. They are now seen as, or they are someone who got divorced. And because of that, the normal way of doing it, the way we do it today, is that we do under the chuppah is more than nisu'in, the going into the home. We do under the chuppah both things together. We do the kiddushin, the making man of wife, and just some few minutes later, we celebrate the wedding. And these two are today done in one, not ceremony, it's formally two ceremonies, but together under what people come and see as a chuppah, one thing. So if we go to I'll share the text from the Siddur, just to show how we can see it in the Siddur. Here. So you can see the first part, blessing of, I don't know the word here, betrothal. That is the kiddushin, okay? And first we say the bracha, everything we do with wine because we like wine, and that's good, and it was the happiness and everything, and it's so. First we do the bracha, but after we say the bracha for the kiddushin, okay, you can see it here. The words we could maybe commanded us concerning to forbidden unions, forbidding us those who are betrothed, that is married, in the first way we thought, permitting those who are wedded to the wedding, and so on and so on. Blessed are you, Lord, who sanctifies his people Israel by the right of canopy and secret covenant of marriage. That is the bracha we say, we drink from the wine, or the couple drink from the wine, and then they do the ceremony we spoke about. That is the main thing. That is the core of everything. And you see here the translation, behold, you are consecrated, holy in a way, to me by this ring, in accordance with the law of Moses in Israel. And then if the woman takes it and the witnesses see that, then they get married. That is the first part of the chuppah, okay? After that, we have the second part. And the second part are these 7 blessings. If you have Sheva brachot, the blessings of happiness, and this is the way we celebrate the nisu'in, the getting together. 7 blessings that are said, often sung together. This is the happiness. These 2 things are 2 separate ceremonies that we do under one chuppah today. The first is the kiddushin, is the becoming man and wife, and the second is going into the home and celebrating that. That is the main part of any chuppah, any kiddushin, everything we see. Stop the sharing here. Now there are more details. We will go through 2 of them today. Okay, one detail that is very important is what Rav Moshe David mentioned before, and that is the ketubah. Does anyone know what ketubah is? Besides, it's something that we write down and we sign.
It's the marriage contract.
Kind of marriage contract, that's true. But as we said now, you get married without a ketubah. There is no, like, if you do everything we said now and you don't have a ketubah, you're still married in the same way. There is no question about your marriage.
But it's wait, sorry.
Yes.
It's covering the responsibilities the groom has for the kala, for the bride.
Yeah.
So like all the conditions.
It's a one-way contract, that has mainly two points in it. The first one is reminding the groom upon what Rav Moshe David says: when you connected, when you have this connection, you have responsibilities. and it declares a responsibility that the groom has towards the bride about protecting her, about caring for her, about giving her fruit and other things that are connected many ways, mostly for what we spoke about, Rav Soloveitchik said, for the first part, the physical needs that a groom has towards the bride. But it, of course, also it includes the needing of doing it in a correct way. That is the first part of one part of the ketubah. The second part of the ketubah is an amount of money that the groom take upon himself as a responsibility to pay to the wife if they get divorced. Okay? So there is the money, it doesn't give any money here, there's no money giving, but it's giving money if it doesn't work, if they separate. And the reason we have this kind of ketubah is that Chazal saw in a time that if we only follow the rules according to Judaism, as we said until now, what happened was that men that in the society in old days were stronger and had more opportunities of economical and other kind of opportunities, they thought it was easy. You get married to a wife. After 10 years, you're tired of the wife. You want to have a new young woman. You just separate yourself from her. You get divorced and you take a new young woman. And first of all, that's very problematic, like in society towards a woman. That a woman that didn't have opportunities to go out and work out, and because of that was dependent on the man to get something to eat. She didn't have anything to protect herself towards that. The man that could continue working, find another woman who needs this kind of protection, if you call it like that, and the woman is alone. So the idea of putting money here was saying, and it's more or less what was a year of salary of old days maybe, that the man understands that if he gets divorced, he still has a responsibility at least to give a big amount of money to the woman that now is divorced and has to find a way out in life. That was not easy for a woman that was divorced in old days. It's not easy today either, but Baruch Hashem, we live in societies where the opportunities for men and women are much more to be independent in solving your own needs without needing to being 100% or almost 100% reliant on someone else. So the first thing the Ketubah gave was a physical solution for a social unbalance that were in the Jewish societies in those days, or possibility for that in old days. Because of that, you get, it's a little like we do today, before people get married, do a agreement about what happened if they separate themselves. And then people know what, so it will be easy, but this one is mainly to protect the woman from that. That is the one thing. The second thing that is not less important is the remindment of a man of what a marriage is. Okay? So what we say is the ketubah is not there to solve the problem only if they get separated. But even more important, the ketubah is protecting the marriage itself. Because the man has to remember that when he connects to someone else, it's his responsibility. And doesn't help that one day, today I'm tired, okay? In every connection with every person in life, we have ups and downs. And I won't tell you a secret saying that also between man and wife, there are ups and downs. But the man has to remember his obligations, physical and his spiritual obligations when he goes into a marriage. And because of that, you have to sign this. And have to understand that if it in old days was, okay, I don't want, I get separated. It doesn't work like that. You have to pay money for that. You have to understand that it's not, the connection it's sometimes easier to connect and harder to disconnect, and that's how it is. It's easier to get married, like physical, but everything when it comes to separation is so complicated. And a man has to understand that and not thinking, okay, I'll just get rid of this wife because I'm angry about her today, and tomorrow I'll find out new, better wife. No, now you have to work inside the marriage you got. Like if I can compare to Catholic marriage, as we say, I won't go into Christianity now. The kind of idea is that the soul connection of a marriage is holy, and because of that, you can't disconnect it. Judaism doesn't say totally the same. It says, yes, it's sacred, it's holy, it should be the whole life. It should be, as we said, not only physical connection, but a spiritual connection. But you have the opportunity to disconnect. You have to choose every day to continue to be together. That's a good thing. But it shouldn't be something that you could just disconnect because they have a bad day or a bad week or a bad month. It has to be much more of that. And because of that, the Ketubah comes in and says, one, you have responsibilities as a man. And two, if you get separated, you have to pay for that. And that, as we say, protects the marriage, protects the home. That's the idea of the Ketubah. Now, because of that, you're not allowed to be married without having a Ketubah. Okay? So even if the Ketubah is not formally a part of the getting married, like halachically, the Ketubah is a need. You're not allowed, according to Jewish law, to be married without the Ketubah. And because of that, we give the Ketubah under the chuppah. Okay, the man gives this contract of responsibility to the wife, to the kala, under the chuppah, and then it's there until they finish their days or unfortunately get divorced, if that happens. So the ketubah is this kind of contract. Now people could discuss, okay, but everything you said now was correct in old days, where women couldn't go out and work and couldn't get their needs alone. And we, Baruch Hashem, live in a society today when this unjust balance is not the same today. So maybe we don't need it anymore. But I'll say, Baruch Hashem, it's important to remember our responsibilities. And even if we live in a better time, still there is something that is still unjust between, and taking out the responsibilities is not a clever thing to do. So Baruch Hashem, we're still also halachically, but I will also say in a moral way, I think the ketubah is still very important to have, to remember the responsibilities. It doesn't mean that the woman doesn't have responsibility towards the wife, towards the man, sorry. The responsibility goes both ways, but the ketubah is a description of one-way responsibility from the man to the wife, and that is what we do. We give the ketubah normally in between these two ceremonies that I said before. We have the kiddushin, the ring, and we have the 7 brachot of celebration. The time we do it is in between, and the reason is very simple. We want to separate these two ceremonies, to remember that they're two separate ceremonies, and because of that, we do something in the middle that separates them from each other. And that's why the order of a chuppah will always be, we begin with the blessing for the wine, we give the ring, then there is the ketubah that is given. Normally we sign it before, but some rabbis want to sign it there under the chuppah. And then we do the seven blessings of the happiness, and that is the getting together. There are more elements, I won't speak about them. There are more elements that are important when we come to a chuppah, like the hinumah, the covering, like the breaking of the glass. That is very known for everyone. Jews, what they do, they break the glass. It's important to remember the temple and remember the mourning on the temple under the chuppah. But there are mainly, I will say, traditions around what we spoke about now, the two parts of the ceremony, and the ketubah as a halakha part, the most important halakha part. The other things that have a very important symbol and traditional ideas are things that came around the chuppah as important traditions to do when you gather together under chuppah. As I said in the start, we won't be able to speak about all the details, but what I wanted is to speak just a little about the idea of getting married, and then what is the main steps of it. We spoke about the kiddushin, the ring, that becoming man and wife. We spoke about the celebration, the 7 brachot, and about the ketubah that is given in between. I hope it made a little order in a big mess of many details of how Jews get married. Hope for a lot of love and happiness and fruits that comes out of that. And in these days, we pray for good messages of peace, of life, in a hard time of war and too much death and horrible things that we hear. So we pray for that and hope for that. Bezrat Hashem will have only good things to hear in the coming weeks and days.
Rav Yoav, I still want to say that even now in these terrible days, there's been amazing, not only miracles, but there's been special moments of chatunot in which couples that were going to get married, the husband was suddenly taken into reserve duty, and they did the chatunot just inside the army bases. It wasn't what maybe they had dreamed of, but I think for many, for both the Khatan and Kala, realizing that the husband is now in war, made that they said, we're going to do it anyway. And it was amazing to see these videos of hundreds of soldiers dancing and doing their best to make them happy in these occasions. And it's really very special in that sense.
Well, I have to add some few seconds saying that not only in Israel, but also Tom and Tabitha, that normally are part of this shiur also, they have planned to get married in Israel in 4 days. Because of the war, it was not possible, but they don't want to change 1 day of the day of their marriage. And they, Bezrat Hashem, on Wednesday this week, they get married in Oslo. And continuing building a home is something we do also in our communities. So we also have in that way a big happiness this week with a chuppah, building a new hope, a new building in the way to peace and to the building of the temple in Jerusalem.
Thank you very much, Rav Yoav, and thank you all. And if there's more questions, you can raise them in the WhatsApp group, and we can approach them, or you can send an email as well. There's many details, but the most important that we're trying in this year, as Rav Yoav said, is to get to the halachot themselves. There's many spiritual meetings that we didn't have time to get to, but in this year, we really try to focus on halacha and what is the most important. And thank you, Rav Yoav. I see there's some more questions, but we're already past our time, so we can continue in the WhatsApp group as well. Thank you all, and Shavua Tov, and we only hope for good news this week for you and for all of Am Yisrael.
Amen. Thank you.